Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. Welcome to 2024. Our new Forbidden Limited list just dropped. Now we're going to be playing under the new list, and I want to showcase you my first deck profile or my first draft up in the upcoming season. So before 2023 ended, this was the deck I was piloting for locals. I might be piloting for major events. Very soon after Mason Millennia arrives, I might be switching to another deck. If you've been tuning into this channel, you should already know which deck I'm talking about. I'm almost getting ready for that. But for the time being, I am going to showcase you this. So I'll just go to the deck and then I'll explain everything as I go along, as I usually do. So 3 Xiamen, 3 Foxy Tune, 3 Ogres, Ogre Dance, 2 Deer Notes, 1 Spider, 1 Charkusai, 1 Wagon, 1 Psychic Wheeler, 3 Imseti, 1 Dwamatef, 1 Happy, triple Ash Blossom, 1 Ghost Ogre, 3 Imperms, 'Spell cards, 3 Jam Session, 3 Teleport, 2 King Sarcophagus. It's probably not gonna be noticed by the glare, but 2 Small World, triple Tactic Talents, 2 Enemy Controller, Called by the Grave, Dangerous Gabu, full Armored SYC. So, I guess I'll go to the extra deck first. SP Little Knight, PLS, double Jam Dragon, Punisher, double Amazing Dragon, Rising Carp, Armor Torpedo, Armor Fortress, Armor Lancer, Downard, Zeus, Typhon, and I'll leave this card for last. I'm going to talk about this card a little bit after I showcase the deck. So the deck I'm profiling here is the P.U.N.K deck that I've been playing for a while now. If you've tuned in on this channel before, this is not the first time I showcase P.U.N.K on this channel. This is a deck that I have been experimenting with. I've been liking it a lot for the past format, and I kind of want to see what happens on this format because I feel like this play style and the availability of the decks that are in the format are going to change, which means that the way people incorporate their strategies are also going to change alongside it. When I picked P.U.N.K as a strategy, it was mainly because we were in a hand trap heavy format. Basically, we're in a format where a lot of different decks just warranted enough people to play non-engine. And my basis and theory behind this deck was that if I'm going to play a deck that can play a lot of hand traps and it can just play a lot of defensive cards and keep a sustainable engine, I felt like P.U.N.K was really good because it has a 1 card starter. It has multiple copies of the same 1 card starter. Like if you take Ogre, Foxy, Teleport, and Small World. That's already like 12 copies of Xiamen, pretty much. Uh, so in decks like Punk, you have a lot of room for non-engine. Like, and I felt like if we were in a heavy non-engine format, this deck would have sufficed in doing its plays while also suppressing like my opponent's resources. My Unchained matchup was very okay. My Rescue Ace matchup was kind of iffy, but it was not like unbalanced by any means. Like my the other matchups like Purely and Tournaments were alright. Uh, the thing about Punk in general is that it really doesn't have bad matchups. So in a very open format where you just want to play whatever you feel comfortable with, and a lot of people are like predicating towards like different strategies, I felt this was a very correct choice. Moving into the current format that we have now on 2024, it's a little hard to predict like if this deck is still going to be viable. Right now, two decks that we know are going to be very valuable here in the TCG are Fire Kings and Labyrinth. And without knowing all the other strategies or knowing like how strong other decks are going to be in the format, uh, it's kind of hard to gauge if Punk is actually the correct choice because the Labyrinth and Fire King matchups are not horrible by any means, but at the same time, they're not like super favorable for us either. The last time I showcased Punk, I showcased Gizmek Orochi as being like the level 8 monster of choice. Basically, that was our main extender in order for us to like consistently summon Amazing Dragon as well as Psychic and Punisher. I opted to change for Horus, for the Horus engine, instead of playing like Gizmek because for starters, it made it so we don't have to be playing as many cards in our deck, and you just play the right amount of non-engine without just risking yourself breaking enough times. The other thing that the Horus engine made possible for us is that it gave us the ability of just playing through simplified game states, like when your opponent uses non-engine on you and vice versa. Like in a format where like the games are very simplified and you just want to win the game out of just like pure card advantage, the Horus engine is really strong. Horus itself as a theme is not really good, and Horus pairing up like for other decks have historically been alright, not to like an insane level. But I feel like in the Punk strategy, it serves very very well. It has some level of synergy. Like for example, you have your full armor XYZ package being like almost infinite discard fodder for like the King Sarcophagus. The level 8 monsters being able to like circumvent the summon for like the level 11 synchros. I also played the BLS Link, which is not the easiest monster to summon if you're not like playing an engine that just spams a lot of big monsters. And this engine is also good enough to do that. Another really cool thing is that Small World uh, not only gets you to Xiamen with like part of your engine, but it also gets you to Imseti, meaning that you essentially have like two extra starters for either your Horus engine or your Punk engine. So now that we talked about like the deck as a whole and why I picked it, um, I guess we can talk about a few other things to note. Like for example, right now my only hand traps are Imperm and Ash and Ogre. The number one reason I'm doing this approach is because in a in a new ban list format, like for the first week, you're just going to be seeing a lot of people experimenting with different decks. You're going to see more rogue decks than like actual contending deck and strategies. After like 2 to 3 weeks, you start seeing the metagame like shape up, and you see like the more popular decks or like the more like predicated decks being more available. But until then, you pretty much uh, are playing blind and are unsure about a lot of different matchups that we are going to be facing. Therefore, we just went for the safe approach. Uh, right here, I have my side deck. Uh, as soon like after I do one or two extra explanations, there are like hand traps that I do highly recommend like for this format moving forward, because I do think like those hand traps are very important to be playing in your deck or strategy. We still play talents as like one of our defensive cards. We also are playing enemy controller. I think enemy controller is going to be really really good. Like this next upcoming format. I guess I should spoil it by now, but like in my side deck, I'm also playing mind control, and I'm also playing change of heart. So when you see a matchup where they have like almost like they have strong interactive monsters that you want to take advantage of, you just start using these cards to help like softening and breaking their board. And between this and talents and like enemy controller, you just have enough cards that just force interaction against your opponent. Your goal is not like to actually take their monsters. Your goal is to make them waste like whatever resources they had to interrupt you on those cards that you're using to interact with them. So I just figured like these were the best choice for like defensive cards. In my past profile, I was playing Kashtira Fenrir. I still think Kashtira Fenrir is very good in this deck. However, I just didn't want to force myself into like deck building specifically for like the accommodation of Kashtira Fenrir. Even though Kashtira Fenrir is a really good standalone card, I feel like just playing other cards in your engine that just try to fight through boards is just more than enough. That's one of the reasons why I'm maxing out on Jam Session. Jam Session is really good because not only is it a card that just help solidify your boards and force interactions with your opponent, but it's also a very good consistency card. It makes it so you keep drawing cards into your from your deck. So if you go first and you end up resolving this, and for example, like resolving this plus Xiamen, like that's just a lot of card advantage that you're just gaining for free. And there's a lot of games where I just have my opponent either uh like destroying this on the spot or like outright negating it, and then just for them to get punished by another one, because Jam Session's effect to special summon a monster can banish any punk card in the graveyard, including other copies of Jam Session. And this effect is once per copy, not like a hard once per turn. The hard once per twice per turn effect is the draw effect. I still think the Armor CC package is really strong. I still think like moving forward, any deck that can play rank threes should be playing this engine. Shoutouts to the Goblin Riders. That's another strategy that's debuted in Phantom Nightmare, and I think once that archetype is like close to its inception, I might profile like a hybrid version of this deck, just playing that engine, or like a combination of the two archetypes, because I do think the Goblin Raider cards are very very strong, and just they warrant themselves their own like separate video. So stay tuned. Post I will be talking about a lot of strategies post Phantom Nightmare, and most likely an upgrade to this deck and to an introduction to Goblin Raiders is one of them. Let's talk about the extra deck. So you see two Jam Dragon drives and two Amazing Dragons. Uh, a lot of people just play one Jam and Dragon drive. Uh, I had specific situations where the second one does come up, and I kind of just want to be safe, like with my strategy, and just prefer to have this card more often than not in the off chance that I actually do need it. Uh, the Bestial Runic deck, just to give one example, are one of those deck strategies that just forces the long game on you, and just having an extra resource from the rest of the deck that can just tutor out your engine is very very strong. Uh, this is the reason why purely is not a problem for you. Like if they try to sit on Expertly Noir and they let you get to this monster, like their Expertly Noir is already gone because this is way bigger than it unless it has delicious memory with many materials under it. And the logic behind that is both this and the Noir are unaffected, but this can become bigger than Noir, which can just get rid of the Noir outright. If your opponent sees this coming, then that means that they're exhausting resources from their Expert Lenoir to make sure that you don't get this card. And that's when you end up punishing them with your cards because if they take out enough materials, they do become affected by card effects. Um, BLS, pretty almost the same logic. Like if purely lets you get to this card, there's no way they can like play through this. This is also good against Rescue Ace. This is also good against Unchained if it ends up still being in the format. This is also really good against Fire Kings. Um, like just having a monster cannot be destroyed or targeted is a very big deal, especially when it can get bigger in size and it can non-target banish card from your opponent. I don't need to explain Espinal Knight. It's pretty much the best aesthetic monster in the format. I want to talk about the most situational aesthetic card monster in the format. Like I feel like this is the second best out next to SP Little Knight. However, the situations where this thing comes up are like not super common. I strongly believe no matter what deck you play this format, you should actually try to make room for these two cards in your extra deck. Um, the XRC armor package, we already talked about it. I will explain downward. So there are specific situations where you just end on the XYZ armor torpedo, and nothing, and you are in a simplified game state where you can just attack over a monster your opponent has with the torpedo, and then just make Downward and Zeus for 4 materials. The best example for that for this is Kashtira Fenrir because this has 2500 attack. So that situation does come up. Obviously, I'm playing Zeus. Rising Carp is just part of the engine. Let's talk about the last card. So, with the Horus engine being played in my deck, there is another monster that I kind of wanted to like dedicate towards part of like the M boards in the deck, in decks or strategies, and that monster is number 68, Xenophon the Sky Prison. So for those who don't know what this card does, it gains 100 attack for each monster in both players' graveyard. Once per turn, you can detach an explosive material from this card uh, until the end of your like the next turn, like your opponent's next turn. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Also, neither player can special summon from the graveyard. Uh, Against the Fire King deck, you just summon this, and it's kind of a big deal because it turns off Snake Eye Flamberge, it turns off the Fire King Circle, it turns off Kirin Graveyard Effect. In the off chance they end up like popping Garunix or Arvata and they're in the grave, or they have both of them in the graveyard, it also shuts down those. They cannot Skyburn to destroy this because it cannot be destroyed by card effects. Like this is a really strong monster. Like at least against Fire Kings. Against other matchups, this card is also a little bit practical. Like another example would be like the Goblin Rider strategy. Uh, Against Silent Force, which is like the new ritual deck from Phantom Nightmare. This is also good. Against Manadium and Infernoble Knights, this is also really, really strong. Like just denying Manadium the ability of like special summoning from Calarium, from Arrival, from Cross Cheap, um, just to name a few examples. This cannot be popped by Research Astrolaud's effect either. So overall, I think uh, this is not like the best tech card to be playing in this extra deck. However, like in a format like this one, I can say right now for certainty that Fire Kings is like a deck that a lot of people will be playing this format, and this card is just fairly ideal against them. Let's talk about the side deck. So you already saw the mind controls and the change your heart. Other cards that I have in my side deck are Cosmic Cyclone. Uh, I think backrow is going to be very, very important, especially since we're getting transaction rollback very, very soon. Just eliminating certain trap cards and make sure that they're banished would be is very important because that means that they don't have a second chance to use those trap cards with rollback effect. Uh, Against Labyrinth, this card is very okay. Against Fire Kings, this card is also okay because it removes the island without destroying it, meaning that they cannot protect it with the Sanctuary effect. Uh, Against Centurion, which might become a deck this upcoming season, this card is also really good. Uh, I thought about playing this in the main deck. If you're playing a deck like Punk, or any deck that can play monsters like Psychic and Punisher, I think this card is really good because it does lower your life points, meaning that your Punisher kills become a lot more enticing. And again, it's just out for floodgates and stuff. Duster, uh, if you can play this, you play this. Now let's talk about the last seven cards. The first card I'm gonna talk about is Dimensional Barrier. Prior to this ban list, I was playing There Can Be Only One, but that card just got limited, and I kind of just wanted to play Floodgate or like a lingering trap card against certain strategies, just so you don't get blown out by them if you end up going first. And one really good example is the Silent Force deck. Another example of this would be like the Goblin Raider deck. Um, Manadium, branded slash Chimera decks. I do think branded is going to be very, very strong this next coming format if people are not prepared for them. So just having a card that can shut them down. Uh, Also, this shuts down purely, which is very important. Not much to say about Dimensional Barrier outside of that. So I'm going to talk about these two cards. The first one is Draw and Lockbird. I think you should be siding or maining Draw this next format. It's not really that good against Labyrinth, and Labyrinth is going to be a very popular deck. However, this is really good against Fire Kings, and Fire Kings is a popular deck that we're having this next format. If Manadium ends up like making a comeback, this is also really good against them. It's mediocre against Rescue Ace. I think Rescue Ace is still going to be in the format. However, against the Phantom Knight version, uh, the Phantom Nightmare version, which is the one playing the Snake Eyes, I think this is really strong. So I think this card should really just be somewhere in your deck if you can play it. The last card I think you should be on everybody's side deck this next format, and I think it's going to become like the next hand trap moving forward, is Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. Prior to this format, Ghost Bell was not very strong. Like it was okay against Unchained, it was okay against Rescue Ace. Against tier elements, you're not trading that many resources against them, so it wasn't as good. Against like the other not as popular matchup, this was okay. However, this upcoming format, I think this card is ridiculously good. Like for starters, this card is really strong against Labyrinth. Just shutting down big welcome effect from like at least the main effect to be used is already really strong. Against Fire Kings, this card is also really really good. I think we're going to enter a format where the graveyard is very very centric, at least for all the fire decks in the format. So this card right here, like I will start practicing with this card because I think you're going to see this a lot. This is also good against the ritual deck. It is also good against the Goblin Rider strategy as well. Uh, yeah, not much to say about that. So that has been my deck profile. I hope you found this informative to your liking. This is just me showcasing how I start preparing for a new format as time goes on and progressions are made and consensus. I will be updating my strategy a little bit more. You will be seeing a little bit more theory with a few other cards. And yeah, I think that's it. I hope keep practicing and keep doing. Welcome to 2024.